Welcome back to Block TV, and you're watching The Good Block, where we get the chance to meet the people making a difference in the world by using cryptocurrencies and, of course, the underlying blockchain technology. A platform doing just that is Giveth, working towards creating a community of makers, they say on their website, to build the future of giving. To tell us how, we are joined in studio by Ziv Kainan, founder at Digital Asset Lawyers and advisor for Blockchain for Good project, and via Zoom by Chris DeCoute, external communications lead for Giveth and the Commons Stack project. How are you?
Very good. How are you? Hi, nice to see you.
Yeah, we're doing well. Thank you for joining us, and of course for Z for joining us as well, as you do all the time. Yeah. Now, before we hear what Giveth is from Chris, here's a little taste from the platform's YouTube page.
I think Giveth is a very interesting form of bringing two parts together without a middleman. So I have a donor and I have a campaign or a person that wants to raise money. But I don't, if I'm the donor, I have money and I want to give it to a cause. That's amazing anyway. And on the blockchain, I can do it in a very transparent way. So I don't have to trust any company what happens with my money. I can actually really see what happens with my money. And on the other hand, when I want to raise money, I don't have to go through any kind of campaign, crowdfunding, company, organization. I can just go on the platform and say, hi, I have this idea, this cause, and I need X money.
And I can make it happen.
Exactly, I can make it happen without all these bureaucratic systems. And this is absolutely amazing, and I think this can actually really change donations.
So Chris, we know that this is all about doing good in the world, but then in practical terms, what is Giveth and the solution that's being built here?
Yeah, well, you actually already heard a pretty good introduction by my colleague Jen in this introductory video. So what we have done at Giveth, in the meantime, we built this platform. So it is a platform built on the Ethereum blockchain. And through this platform, you can indeed trace your donations. So if you are an individual, you can just say, I want to give to a good cause, and I want to donate a certain amount. The thing is, what happens right now is very often when people give to a good cause is that they cannot really see what happens with their money. And this is what we wanted to change. If you want to really build a connection of trust with your audience, you have to let them know how funds are being spent. And that is what we do with the Giveth app, which you see here. So it's like this platform on which all these communities have started around different causes. So we have Bright Idea, which is working on having a good identity. You have the Open Data Fund organization and the Fair Data Society, they're called on our platform, and they are striving to bring more transparency when it comes to use of data. And so we have a number of these organizations already on the Giveth platform, which is currently in beta. And so you can trace donations from the beginning until the end. And so the two main components of the Giveth app, the donation application as we call it, are actually on the first element is that you create this layer of transparency that you can really trace any donation. And the second element is accountability. That is, of course, also very important and sometimes a little bit missing in institutional charities, that the money is given and you don't really know what happens with it, and that you can also not take it back. So this is all now possible within the Giveth tab, that people have to prove that the funds that they have received, that they actually use them correctly. So we have this layer.
So everything it seems to be very actionable, right, and incentivized and transparent, which is what blockchain social impact projects are missing, and what blockchain could potentially offer. Now, with this, you have the Common Stacks project. Can you please explain what that is?
For sure. So that is actually the next step. So the Giveth app was the first step, and this first step was making with blockchain technology donations more transparent and more accountable. But what we then realized is that we are still stuck in the situation where it is always the same people who give to good causes, the same people who want to make the world a better the world a better place. but they are actually not really incentivized to do this. This is just, it's a donation. The money is gone. And that is the thing that we want to change with the Commons Stack. So this is the next step for Giveth. And this is a project that actually realigns incentives. That's how we explain this. And how do you realign incentives? We want to make sure that people who give don't just give, but they also get something back. And this is what we're building. So how do you do this? We want to create entire communities with their own currencies, actually. So if you now would give to a good cause, imagine, for example, I'm in Thailand right now, and imagine that you say, well, I want to build a community around cleaning up Thai beaches. But what you would receive in this case is a token, and this token has a certain value. And so we are building different components with the Commons Stack, and the first component is actually built around sustainable funding, continuous funding for any organization. So if you, to return to that example, if you want to clean up the beach, you receive a token, and this token will have a value that fluctuates. And when you have given to this good cause and you receive this token, you can at some point also burn this token back into the organization, into the bonding curve, because we are working with what we call augmented bonding curves. This is a mathematical model with which we actually just link value to the token. And this is an entire market that you can build around good causes. We are building economies around causes. And so this is an entirely new concept because we believe that this is something that is possible. Right now you are in the situation.
I'm curious, I'm sorry for cutting you off here, but that value, you mentioned this tool to determine the value of the token, but can you tell us what the metrics are for that?
Sure. So the value of the token, well, how it actually works is it is all based on a mathematical layer that has been created by an organization we work with. This is block science. And so in the beginning, it is actually programmed into this bonding curve, what the value will be at specific moments. And so there are two things that actually define this value. It is not based on how long it goes, but it's actually based on what this community actually does. So if the community creates value, the token will have value as well. And so this is all based on mathematics. So I will not go in all the details, but I can share you some links on explaining how this works.
No, absolutely. But you know, just to that whole, I mean, that's a great way to incentivize humans, right? If you do this thing, we're going to get, I mean, people are greedy ultimately. So if you give them more value, especially monetary value in some way, shape, or form, perhaps that would be the solution. Now, I would like to touch on DAOs, so decentralized autonomous organizations. And I'm turning to Ziv here, who, you know, you brought this point up. You're fascinated by this point, of course. What is a DAO, and how does it or can it then correlate to NGOs?
Yeah, so you know, I encountered Giveth while researching DAO models for the Good Dollar project. And the concept of DAO is amazing, and I think we need to take a step back and understand what are the problems that can be solved with a DAO. So as humanity, we have challenges that we know we need to cope with. For example, climate change, and everybody is suffering from that. And pollution, poverty. So if we are able to unite as humanity under the same roof and coordinate between ourselves, we can 100% solve all these problems. The problem is that it's very hard to coordinate a large crowd of people, and it's hard to coordinate, and you always find like the free rider, if you know the free rider problem, where you have like one individuals that you know that abuse the system. So how do you create an organization that compiled of thousands of people, like a co-op, if you know the concept of a co-op, yeah, without having anyone abusing the system, and creating a governance model. So what's amazing about this blockchain technology, that the blockchain technology can create a trustless environment. Basically an environment where a large crowd of people can coordinate between themselves, and then come the DAO models, people that are developing DAOs like DAOstack, DORG, and so on, and offer all kind of, this is a semi-mathematical governance, legal, very complicated space, but amazing to explore. Yeah, how can you govern an organization which doesn't have any management? Okay, and all the governance is done through the community itself, and with something which is similar to a bank account, basically a digital wallet where you have all the digital tokens stored within that wallet. Could be a DAI, a stablecoin. This is 100% fiat equivalent, and then this organization needs to decide whether he wants to return the services of ZIR, for example. So how does this decision been made? And also on a legal perspective, which is something that I'm very involved in, and it's very interesting to be like, what's the legal structure, okay, for that? Like, is it a company? Is it a partnership? How do you defend the people that work within the DAO? And you can find emerging models. For example, in Vermont, you got a BBLC, like a blockchain company, really actually registered, and there's a company, there's a DAO named DORG that's been using that company. There's another DAO named Nexus Mutual, which is amazing concept. Maybe we'll bring in someday, of insurance. Basically, a crowd of people that insure one another, right. Okay? They've been using a company limited by guarantee in the UK. A very interesting
So essentially
concept.
just a lot of people working together,
exactly.
Without, everybody has their own incentives, their own actionable, whatever it may be, and through this manage to work together legitimately, which I think is unheard of and very difficult for people to navigate. But then shifting this back to Giveth, you call this concept a decentralized autonomous community, if I'm not mistaken, right? A DAC, a DAC. So why do you believe that users should join these decentralized communities? What is the reason for it?
So yeah, we call it indeed a DAC, which for us actually stands for Decentralized Altruistic Community.
Altruistic community.
Yeah, definitely. So that's just an important point for us, because we do believe that people want to do good in this world, and they are frustrated and they want to be involved. So like a reason for them to join is because people want to belong. And people will seek out other people who believe in the same thing. So that is a very important aspect of Giveth. We are doing so many things, as we mentioned before. So it is indeed building this donation application, but we're also constantly experimenting and seeing like how can you involve the people? So as Ziv was saying, like you have DAOs now, which is a fantastic concept where it's possible to really measure decision making, to take decisions together as a group. That's a very important aspect. But together with this, you have the cultural element, and this is also being experimented with in our community. Is like, how do you involve people in a non-hierarchical way? How do you build this community? And so we use many tools, many existing tools to build this community. We have many calls with the people who want to be involved. We see how we can help them, and we pass. Yeah, we're all about connections and bringing the people who want to do good to like some of the causes that are already existing in the world.
Absolutely. So now a lot of good points have been made here, both by you and by Ziv, of course. Mm-hmm. And so this might be a given at this point, but why use blockchain when you have things like Kickstarter, you have things like GoFundMe, which seemingly work for people, right? People are still on these platforms. They're not looking for alternatives. So why go with blockchain? Yeah,
well, that is the beautiful thing is like initiatives like Kickstarter and so on, they are a good start. But right now they're still very centralized, and that has some disadvantages. And so we believe that with blockchain technology, especially with what we want to do with the common stack, you can take it a step further. Some things that were not possible before. If you look at, for example, how Bitcoin came into existence, and you have this entire ecosystem that keeps itself alive. There can be many discussions on like what is the use of Bitcoin in itself. It's a token that has a monetary value, but you have this entire ecosystem. You have the miners, you have trading going on, you have all sorts of things, and it is an economy that came into existence. And this is possible with blockchain technology. Imagine if you now apply this to some good causes. You can create economies around any cause, and this is possible since blockchain technology came into existence, because now you can use this technology and say, okay, well, we create a token around something that we believe in. We put a mathematical model behind it so that people cannot abuse the system, because right now, very often you have value extraction. And so we have built this model because we believe it is possible to protect people a little bit against themselves. So very specifically here with this, what we call the augmented bonding curve, to prevent what we call Ponzi schemes. So people who the pyramid schemes, where people just, they buy the token and they want to sell it at a higher value so they get out as quickly as possible. That means that some people, suffer from this. And with this model that we have built, this is prevented because tokens are locked for a certain period. And when these tokens are only unlocked when people are actually doing some things for the good cause. Because we have what we call, you have a collateral pool and you have a funding pool. And this is maybe a little bit too much detail here, but in any case, this funding pool is actually used to fund good initiatives that this specific cause is working around. And that is something that was not possible before without blockchain technology. You can actually create this market, and at the same time, you can prevent people abusing it. And that's the big difference. That's something that is not possible with something like Kickstarter. With Kickstarter, you give money and the money is gone. And you also don't have that much transparency. So with blockchain technology, you can trace everything that happens from the beginning until the end. And if possible, you could even make a profit. Right now, people have the idea, profit is bad. When they think of good causes, profit is bad. But actually, maybe it isn't. People need to support themselves. Also, people who work for a good cause or people who believe in good causes. So we are using these incentivization mechanisms to actually, incentivize people.
That's a fantastic point that you actually just brought up. You bring up profitability and monetization and things like that. So it's funny, speaking to Ziv actually, you brought up this idea that Giveth's tool can actually scale to make an investment. What is that thought process?
So while exploring the Giveth tool, understanding the visibility and the transparency that this tool delivers, I started imagining how would traditional investment, I'm speaking about traditional equity investments that have been done in a company, could be affected by using that tool, and the level of transparency that it could give to a shareholder. I think that that would need to be innovated. Okay, I think it's not innovated enough, and shareholders today in a company, they want to have more engagement, to understand more of the process of development, for example, of the product, and perhaps, for example, an investor in a company can decide that he invests on a very specific milestone that he believes in. He can use it via the Giveth platform. So I think great potential also for traditional investments. All those VCs, I think they need to reinvent themselves. They need those kind of tools, and and they can actually use the solution that's been developed here.
Absolutely. So, and then, so Chris, you got it from a digital assets lawyer and expert here. So, Giveth's tool is doing its job and can be used in other ways. Now, this is a sidebar question, but I know that you guys call yourselves unicorns, and I was wondering if there is some background to that.
No, I don't think there is that much background. I would say in general, so our founder, Griff Green, who is a very charismatic person, I would say, he's known in the blockchain space as the ultimate hugger. When you meet him, you will not forget. That's that person who gives you this big hug. And so we have this very warm, approachable, inclusive culture. And at some point we started calling ourselves unicorns. We are these fluffy, inclusive, warm beings, and that's part of our brand, I would say. So that's how it started.
I disagree with how you started that off, because I think it's a great story and you guys should start telling it more. And then moving forward, I'd like to know, you said you guys are in beta. What are Giveth's plans moving forward? What are your next projects?
For sure. So the next steps is actually, so as said, the common stack, this first component is the augmented bonding curve that we are building for sustainable funding. And so the next step of 4 components, the next step is actually including and transforming the existing Giveth dApp to work within the Common Stack ecosystem. So we will use, when you want to make proposals, the Giveth app works fantastic. It's a fantastic tool to make proposals for a specific community. But we are going to link this existing Giveth app with the sustainable funding mechanism, and we have some more components planned around improving voting within a DAO ecosystem. As you've mentioned before, you can do voting right now within DAOs, but the system is most of the time it's just like one person, one vote. But also there are more possibilities. And we have also a mathematical model developed for that. And that's one of the things we want to build. So the next step is to build these components, starting with the sustainable funding. And for that, well, for the first time to build this, we are seeking some funds to build this first component. So that is the first step in this.
And thank you very much for sharing that. I'd like to thank Z for joining us, our digital assets lawyer expert, and of course, Blockchain for Social Good project advisors. You're so necessary in the world. And Chris DeCoot, the external communications lead for Giveth. It was great to have you on breaking that down for us. And for all you folks watching at home at blocktv.com, keep on watching for more cryptocurrency and blockchain related news.
For more news and updates, follow us on Twitter.